Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And Victoria. I said
And
my name.
you're watching episode 121 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. We're back with a bunch of stuff to get through today, and I'm excited because we have a lot of really good content to cover in all the stuff that we're doing today, which I guess you probably won't know what we're doing today unless you're looking at our clothes, unless we change our clothes between recordings or during recordings. Um,
Wait, did you say
but
during recording? I don't get the. What is wrong with you?
I just lost my train of thought. There's a lot of good stuff. And some of the live show stuff isn't nearly as good of the stuff that we have to do, but still interesting to talk about, which is the important thing. First, news items. There are so many news things to talk about. So, first off, today is July 16th. As of this recording, 2 days ago, July 14th, was the 4th birthday of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a lot longer than I thought that we had, which is crazy, Victoria.
Yes.
I hadn't moved away from home yet when we started.
I know.
And now
And
both of
I
us
hadn't either.
have. Yeah,
Yeah.
except now you're back home, but
Yeah.
not for much longer.
No.
So, 4th anniversary of the Oddcast on the AIOC now. The audiobook for Attack at the Arena, the second Imagination Station book, is out now. So they have the first 2 done now. Also, album 63, Up in the Air, has started airing as of this Thursday, so part 1 of Find a Penny is up on there, and like always, each subsequent Thursday through the rest of the summer, the other 5 episodes will go up, so make sure to listen to those.
For a sec, when you coughed into your elbow, I thought you dabbed. And
That's
I thought you...
That, Victoria, haven't you seen DAB stands for Destroy All Bacteria, because you're coughing into your elbow.
Never do that again.
We wanted to give a shout out to the World of Odyssey podcast, and link is down in the description. They're on YouTube, not on Facebook yet, from Charlie and Boyd. Charlie is a fan of the podcast, of this podcast, and recently decided, hey, I'm going to start my own podcast. So they're doing a video live streaming format, but they might be changing up the format soon. So the videos on the channel right now might not be what they're going to be doing soon, because they're going to be changing up the format and editing and a lot shorter. It's going to be different, but I just interviewed Katie Lee earlier today, and hopefully that should be up right now, but they're very excited about that, and that's just barely getting underway. But since, I was more, I guess both of us doing the podcast, but me talking to Charles was part of the process in getting that thing off the ground. So shout out to them. Please go check that out. What else? Album 64 stuff is out. I won't read the one sentence description for it because the album hasn't come out yet, but the title and the album art, I won't say them or show them if you don't want to see them, but down in the description there's a link to the art and also the title, so you can go look at that. You can go look at that if you want.
Everything just got very blue where I am.
Oh, you have
a lot more
you do have a very blue room, Victoria.
Yep.
A few more items. Lori Tritel, as you probably saw on the Facebook page, the voice of Dr. Lily Graham, she passed away unexpectedly from lung cancer complications on July 8th. So please pray for her family and friends. It was very sad. And there's still episodes coming out with her in them now. So that's weird and sad, as does happen when actors pass away like that. But yes, it was very sad and sudden and unexpected. So please pray for everyone who's dealing with that right now. And finally, back to notes on the Odyssey books. The first Blackherd novel has its official title, which I think it has for a while, Opening Moves. But the official title is out for the second book, which is Pawn's Play, Pawn 'S play. That will be available to read online on the AIOC later this month in July for a short time, and the hard copies will be out this fall or autumn if you prefer. And those are all the news items we have for now. Lots to catch up on because it's been a while. Anything else to add, Victoria?
No, I think you covered everything.
Exciting. Game of Thrones comes back tonight.
Not that either of us watch it.
No, but
I love how you keep on saying tonight and today, even though this is not going to get put out the same day we record it.
Which is funny, because during the Telltale Let's Watch, Michael and Gavin did the opposite. They talked about the time as if it was coming out, not when they recorded it. which was forever ago. Okay, so live shows. When we decided to do the live show episode right now, I thought of it because...
Devin, stop. So we decided to do the live show episode, the discussion on live shows, totally with the knowledge that a live show was about to come out, because we know things like this. It wasn't
technically we didn't know that.
Mere coincidence.
But we were thinking of that, and it was purposeful thinking that...
We totally planned this.
Yeah, given that live shows only happen every 5 years, which is longer than this podcast has been running, it was absolutely purposeful that we purposefully did this episode mere months before the next live show in preparation and for predictions of how we can extrapolate current patterns to know what is going to happen.
It wasn't by accident at all.
Nope. Okay, so sorry guys, I still have
dabbing.
I have a post-viral cough that's hanging around right now. Fortunately, this is not the microphone I'm recording on right now, so the cough shouldn't be too bad for you guys. So there have been how many live shows up to this point, Victoria, for Adventures in Odyssey?
Too many. There should only be 3, but there's 5.
Specifically, there have been 5 up until now. I didn't realize how, specific the events that they happened for were up until I was looking into it, because in my memory I was like, oh, lots have been for birthdays, but I know Mandy's debut was for some convention thing, religious broadcasters convention, so I'm like, they've done them for a bunch of different things. But I didn't realize until I actually started writing it out to analyze stuff how regimented it has been. So can you name the 5 live shows in order, Victoria?
Let's see if I can do it without looking.
The first one,
New Year's Eve Live,
which was for the Adventures in Odyssey 10th anniversary.
And that was actually broadcast on New Year's. Or filmed on New Year's, recorded.
Yeah, I believe so.
Mandy's debut. I can only list them in order because I listened to them last night.
Yeah, this is the only one that didn't happen on a 5-year anniversary. Mandy's debut was done in front of the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, but in my memory, that was the thing that was like, oh, well, yeah, there are all sorts of different things. That's the only one that's not for a 5-year birthday celebration. And then after Mandy's debut.
So this is my mind. So this, Mandy's debut, live at the 25 where they peaked.
Which is the AIOO 15th anniversary, and also the 25th anniversary for Focus, which is, the title.
So notice how it's been steadily going up like this. Mm-hmm. It goes BTV Live,
which was the 20th birthday for AIO.
And then literal explosion.
Literal thermonuclear holocaust.
Push the red button.
AIO 25th birthday, push the red button, which means it's been 5 years since Push the Red Button came out, which is crazy because
Devin and I actually watched the live stream of Push the Red Button together.
Push the Red Button was the last episode that came out before we started this podcast. It is it's the newest episode that we've never reviewed. I remember because when we first did the Beginner's Guide to Odyssey, which was our second episode, we said all of the lore we were talking about was canon up to episode 726, Push the Red Button. Because that was the newest episode that had come out when we started the Oddcast. The next episode after that, Your Servant is Listening Part 1 and 2, which were the first reviews we ever did. We've reviewed every single...
watch them. They're really crappy reviews.
We've reviewed every single episode that has come out since 726 is the newest one that we haven't done. And still, this isn't a review of the episodes themselves. This is just a review of the live show aspect of them.
But we will say our thoughts.
Well, I'm withholding my thoughts if they don't relate to the live show aspect of them. I'm not commenting on the stuff that doesn't relate to the live showness of them. However, that being said, illogical writing for the sake of fan service is a live show thing, so that does get addressed.
Yeah.
So, yes, in November, for the 30th birthday of AIO, we're going to have, the episode is called The Hand of Hope. It will be recorded on the cruise in November, on the Disney cruise. It will have all of the main cast and Jules and the Westcott singers and the Get in the Show winner. So the stuff on AIO Wiki, so it's called The Hand of Hope. The description says, the gang from Odyssey gathers again to present a live show at sea. The cast currently includes Whit, Wooten, Eugene, Jules, and the Westcott Singers, Jason, Connie, and the winner of the second Get in the Show contest.
I think you said Connie twice.
No, because I read off a list. I said Jules.
Oh.
So
I'm just used to Connie's name
also
coming after Whit and Eugene.
Exactly. That's what. Yeah, I said Whit, Wooten, and Eugene.
Yeah.
No Penny though. Yeah, no Penny. And for the
maybe
genre,
she's still missing.
For the genre that's listed here, live show, Christmas episode, and a musical.
Remember the last time we had a Christmas musical episode? Or I guess it wasn't a musical, it was Thanksgiving.
Caroling?
Close enough.
Oh,
because it was Christmas parodies.
That's true. I thought I meant Caroling. Or actually, no, it would be Christmas Around the World Parts 1 and 2.
Actually, that wasn't that bad. We got to hear Hal sing, and he has a nice voice.
He does.
Can I just say, I am so glad that they made an alternative version of Push the Red Button, because
they had to. I mean, I'd forgotten that the dream was
better than the other version.
100% forgotten that the Wooten Dream ending was in the video version as well. I thought it was only the studio version.
Yeah,
because Chris's wrap up.
We turned off the video because we were like sobbing or something like that.
Because I remember Chris's wrap up, and so my mind was like,
Me
"Oh,
too.
That's the end of the episode." I forgot that it cuts back to Wooten. Anyways, okay, so patterns from the start. So, like I said, they take place. So we look at when these live shows took place. Apart from Mandy's debut, every live show has occurred at a 5-year interval anniversary for Adventures in Odyssey, except for the original 5-year mark, which when you explain it like that, it sounds very much like the Pact in my mind. It's like they do it every 5 years, except they didn't do it on the first 5 years. But then there was one weird one where it wasn't on an anniversary, and it sounds like when Agnes and Joanne met each other. So some of the patterns... And you can add any, there's probably ones I forgot too. Some of the initial patterns I outlined that the live shows have. So they have lots of main characters, as many as they can squeeze in there. They'll get main actors to do alternative one-shot characters with like really goofy voices, usually
especially Chris, because she won't have anything to do otherwise.
Exactly. They
try to get Chris to say hard things that she can't say.
And they'll do celebrity impressions as much as they can.
And by celebrity impressions, it's basically just Jess.
Yeah.
And can I just say, I really love Animaniacs. I'm a huge Animaniacs fan, but that part in Push the Red Button went on way too long. Like, actually, that's one thing with all the live shows, all the jokes go on way too long.
That's one of the things. They have notably longer holds for laughter, because there's an audience there that they're waiting to stop laughing. It's interesting. It always reminds me of, because sitcoms that are filmed in front of studio audiences fall into this a lot, where, if there's an actual audience that's laughing at them, not just a laugh track, then you usually wait for the laughing to stop before you keep on going. And John Cleese talked about this in one of the bonus tracks for Fawlty Towers for the box set. And he talked about how he finds this is a problem with sitcoms because in the live, if you're at the recording, it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense for this pause to be there because everyone's laughing together, and laughing is a communal experience, and then it continues after that. But if you're watching the show at home, which is what most people are doing, then the laugh seems too long, the pause seems too long, because you're going to laugh less if there's not real people laughing around you. Mm-hmm. And if you're laughing less, then now you're sitting here waiting for the laughter to die down before the show continues. And so his rule for Fawlty Towers was, do not pause for the laughter, keep on going, pushing through the laughter, because not only does that make things funnier for the audience at home, because now they don't have this awkward pausing in there where it's long and drawn out, waiting for that to happen, but for the audience in there, it makes even more laughter because it keeps things going faster and closer together, which doesn't give them time to recover from the laughter, which means it like keeps on building on itself and becomes even funnier. And the more laughter on the laugh track carries over. Fawlty Towers, excellent show.
I love John Cleese so much. He's so great.
It's a great show. Okay, so yes, that is definitely one of them. Notably longer holds for laughter because there's a live audience. And on that note,
I've noticed, just a note in general, the first time you ever watch something, it usually is more in slow motion than the second time you watch it, like, you pick up on things more. At least for me, like, everything feels longer the first time I see something.
Because you're processing it more.
Yeah, because, like, if anything bothers me or something like that, it just feels so drawn out the first time I see it, and then the second time I know what to expect. And I'm always surprised by the fact that it feels shorter.
That's why I'm glad that even when we're reviewing episodes that are brand new that we haven't listened to a bunch on the Oddcast, that when we do the album review at the end, we get to go back over them and like look at it and change the perspective on how we see it. So on the note of the holds for laughter, audience participation, getting them to yell or make sound effects or do all that stuff. The narrative of the episode being framed by being a live broadcast or a live performance intentionally, like in the narrative of the episode.
I think the kids' radio stuff works, though, way better than just like, oh, we're having a live show. And it's like, why?
I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing. These are just patterns that carry across them. Yeah. Having songs, having Will Ryan singing stuff in them. Over-the-top sound effects, of course, because they do live Foley, which is probably one of the coolest things about doing the live shows is the fact that the Foley is done live. But that also means that they like to do lots of the crazy, wacky, over-the-top stuff.
It gets way too drawn out.
Sometimes, yeah. Lots of pop culture references, way more than you get in the regular show, especially either really new or really, really old pop culture references. It's like it's either for the kids or for like the really old people. Like they were like writing for.
I still don't understand that one pop culture reference in
New Year's Live about the To the Moon. Yeah, I have no idea what that's referencing.
I've never known what that is.
Otherwise, it's To the Moon.
And it has to be just like.
It's
the
just a
guy's
movie.
Voice too. It's not
just
it
that
is.
Line, yeah.
Because the second he starts talking, we all start cheering, and I'm like, "Why are you cheering? I don't understand."
Same thing. In that same episode, Walker Edmiston does a Henry Fonda impression. I don't really know who that is. I know it's an old actor.
He's an actor.
Yeah, but I don't know what he played or what he was there
in westerns.
I'm gonna guess so, just because of the voice.
Yeah, I think he might have been in some.
Oh, and Walker also did Bart impersonating Henry Fonda in another episode where he's like, "Look at me, Ma, I'm getting the water, Ma, fetching a pail for the water, Ma." So that would lend to the Western thing, yeah. And episode being longer than a standard broadcast episode is something that started in the last two, where they're at least double the length of a regular episode. And as we said before, a big trend that starts amping up towards the present is increasingly illogical writing that is playing to fan service at the cost of actual internal logic for the episode.
And just like
overall
goodness
was just out of control in Push the Red Button.
I'm not going to blame Jess, because I love Jess, but I am going to say lots of these things are due to the fact that he is in the shows. And he's so talented, and they want to use his talent.
Well, it's interesting because they also put Harlow in the earlier ones, too.
Yeah,
I guess to fill the similar sort of role.
It's basically like if they have something that they know people like, they try to amp it up to 10, but then it just becomes so overdone.
Yeah.
That it's just not good anymore, and it loses some of its value.
Although I will say overall, when I think about the live shows, I'm always like, but I realize listening through them, like
they're not as bad as we always build them up.
On the whole, mostly very good shows. It's just Push the Red Button has become the heuristic in my mind for live shows.
Yeah,
but it's like 100 times worse than any of the other ones. Even BTV Live is a pretty decent episode on the whole.
Honestly, okay, I want to ask.
New Year's Eve Live is my favorite out of the 5 of them, and Live at the 25 is a close second.
Live at the 25 is my favorite because it has this sketch where they go into the future and just like so many good jokes.
New Year's Eve Live
about when they're in the future.
New Year's Eve Live overall is my favorite, but my favorite individual part of any of the live shows is the future sketch in Live at the 25.
And it also has the line from Jason. I smiled fondly, and it's like the funniest line ever.
So good.
Jason is, Devin and I have said this a billion times. I'm not sure if we've said it on camera though, but Jason is the best thing about Push the Red Button.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why they had to cut him out of the album version.
It was
of Push the
total
Red
fourth
Button,
wall breaks,
but
but
it makes
oh
me
my
sad.
goodness. It's funny because I always remember the line about getting hit on the head with the mortal coil and being like...
Yeah, that's the funniest line.
Yeah.
I was in the archive room and all the old episodes were falling off the shelves. I got hit in the head with the Mortal Coil Part 2, and I don't even sound like myself. And then Wit's like, I don't either.
Which is so funny. But also, he also has the other joke too, where because they're fighting Lord Foulspleen, and he's like, "Are you sure you don't want me to help? I mean, I voiced a lot of superheroes, guys."
Yeah,
and I'm like,
he was
I forgot about that line.
Michelangelo on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And he was the Tick.
He was
too.
Michelangelo, right?
Yeah, I can never remember which one, but yeah, he was one of the TMNT.
Sure.
He was the Tick, and I think he played other superheroes as well.
He's either that or Raph. He might have been Raph.
I think that might be it.
Yeah.
I never
Raph
watched.
Is my favorite.
I never watched TMNT growing up, so I don't know their personalities
I
whatsoever.
watched some episodes, but not the original cartoon.
Okay,
Raphael is the best one.
So talked about the formatting in the shows. It's interesting how they try and make the shows be like a live broadcast to explain the presence of the audience there. So in order, New Year's Eve Live was a kids' radio show. Mandy's Debut was a series of plays in the Little Theater. Live at the 25 was also kids' radio. Candid Conversations with Connie specifically. BTV Live obviously was a BTV episode. And then Push the Red Button wasn't. It's actually the only one to break this format. Technically, kids' radio was broadcast, but they weren't broadcasting live kids' radio. It was like a pre-recorded thing Wooten was doing in the studio. So there's actually no element of the audience being present or any audience being present in that episode. I also find
it interesting that Push the Red Button's the only one where they went in the imagination station in.
I mean, it makes sense because the other ones, why would you? Because they're all live things. It wouldn't make sense to use the imagination station. So
the editing in the Push the Red Button video is so bad. It's so bad. I was like, it has crappy CGI birds, and when he's like looking at himself, it has like picture sound effects, and it has like stills of him looking at his face in the mirror, and I'm like, no.
Another pattern across them that breaks with Push the Red Button is that the other episodes are all formatted in a way that allows for like smaller skits, smaller multiple stories to be told, which means that almost all of them allow for non-canon stories like sketches and Bible story reenactments and historical things and stuff like that, instead of just having canon present day scenes going on. So we had BTV 2 kids radio presentations and then Mandy performing 2 plays. The biggest exception to this pattern, besides Push the Red Button, was Mandy's Debut, which was only 2 big skits, and they were both limited to real characters, both limited to present day, but even still, they were fictional things taking place in canon. It was just stories that Mandy told, not actual canon events.
Devin and I both agree that New Year's Eve Live feels a lot more like a BTV episode than the actual BTV episode.
Way more so. See, New Year's Eve Live...
BTV Live doesn't even feel like a BTV episode at all.
It's really not. Does it even
have like one of Bernard's stories?
I don't think so.
I don't think it does.
No, it has it basically has them imagining the wit's end as different people, and it has the Wooten's exaggerated imaginings.
Those hurt me.
And other stuff.
I love that Robin and Jack and Lucy and Jimmy are there, but they hurt me.
It doesn't have any central theme that... Well, I mean, I guess it has God's Calling, but that's not the name of the episode. Interestingly, though, New Year's Eve Live reads very much like a BTV episode. All the stories are centered around a central theme, which is like the passage of time. Like, it could have been called BTV Time.
It has one of Bernard's stories.
It has a Bernard story, which is broken up and segmented through the show. It's structured exactly like a BTV episode, except for missing, like, did you know segments, I guess.
I mean, those aren't in BTV Live, so...
That's true. So going through the episodes bit by bit, just to look at, like, what live show elements they had. So New Year's Eve Live opens with a premise that it's a kids' radio broadcast in front of a live audience, so they fully acknowledge the audience presence there. Eugene has 2 songs in the episode, Out with the Old Year and Annum Novum Faustum
They're
Felicia.
such good songs, though.
They're great songs. I
love how Harlow sings the songs.
Yeah.
When he comes back.
I love the Sosigenes, the Greek bit. They make use of the over-the-top sound effects with the adding machine and really long hold for audience laughter.
Even then, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
To what they have now.
The pause and the laughter, the way it's timed, really makes me think there was a very visual gag going on there.
Yeah.
that we're not aware of. It's very clear because there's like laughter when there's nothing else going on. It's like very clearly a visual
No,
gag
I
going
always
on
imagine
between
him just like looking
Walker
like
and the
that.
Foley. Well,
at the
it's also
feet.
because the Foley people are the ones controlling it. So I also imagine maybe Walker was like doing visual typing and then he stops, but the Foley guys kept on doing the adding machine, and that's why he said it has a mind of its own, because he stopped doing the motions, but the Foley kept on going.
Oh, okay.
That's my guess, but we
That
don't
would
have
make
video.
sense, actually.
And then the sketch with Joey's life clock makes use of audience interaction every time there's a time jump where they do like the
I didn't realize until I listened to that last night that was the audience. I always wondered what that was, and I was like, oh, that's what it is. I thought it was just a really weird sound effect, like...
Lots of old movie and song references and celebrity impressions throughout. Like you said, there's the Charlie guy on the bus, and we have no idea who he is. There's a Henry Fonda with Tom that he's doing. All that stuff. And apparently, the Joey's Life Clock story is like a famous old short story, except it was a spool of thread instead of a watch in the original.
I think that story gets like parodied or something in the last 5 years. It's this musical with Anna Kendrick and this other guy. But there's a story a lot like it in it.
So that's what we got going on in New Year's Eve Live. Mandy's debut. This is interesting. I had forgotten or didn't know about this. This episode was actually pitched and it was presented for the live show as 2 split episodes.
Huh. That makes a lot more sense.
The first one was called It's All My Fault, and the second one was called I'll Do It My Way. So they were, in the live show itself, they were presented as 2 split episodes, and then the in-between framing bits, the scenes with Whit and Mandy, were actually recorded later and then put around them to make it 1 episode. Which means in the presentation, they, I guess, weren't actually supposed to be plays by Mandy, which means they were originally considered to be canon things that happened.
Mandy's a very good writer then, if she can make such realistic things.
She said in the episode, it's easy to write what you know about. And if she just literally was writing non-fiction scripts of what happened,
it was... that she totally stole the story about the Valentines.
She did. She did.
She's just a plagiarist.
So, yeah. Mandy has a bad habit.
Did you watch I started watching the new demo disc, Mandy's Bruce, where it's like, just took the entire script, entire book of Gone Girl and replaced every name with Mandy. Bruce.
With Mandy.
And then went to jail for copyright infringement. That's Mandy.
Yeah. So the first sketch that she does is All My Fault, which is the one where everyone's taking the blame for Whit being in the hospital. That sketch lends itself really well to the live show format and actually does something very similar to what BTV Live does for the Wits End thing, which is they have basically the same scene and then they perform the same scene over and over through different characters' voices. So it's still everyone acting, but it's like you're perceiving the story through different people, so the dialogue changes and stuff.
Mandy's version haunts my dreams.
Okay, I'll get another mop.
It's so creepy.
So I think that idea, like having the same scene, but you go over and over it through different characteristics of characters, is something that makes sense for live shows because it plays up the stereotypes for characters, which is really easy humor to write, and it plays well for a live audience in that, like, it's an easy humor to write. It's going to get the most laughs because it's like, oh, we're stereotypes for the characters is something that people will connect to easily. So I feel like that's why they do that. And so it makes sense.
I feel like if I saw a live show and there were characters I was really, really super passionate about and they did stereotype versions of that, I would just be insulted the entire time.
Yeah.
Like if they did one for Jay or Wellington or something like that. Okay, Wellington, I'd probably laugh, actually. But like for Jay, if they just made him super mean, I'd just be sitting there and I'd be like,
There's also... there's a decent amount of over-the-top sound effects scattered throughout the sketches. Obviously, the most is like when Whit slips on Bernard's floor and then he's like, everything's crashing and breaking and stuff.
Oh, yeah. And then just the bowl rolling.
And Mandy even makes the point between the sketches. She's like, do you think Eugene's hamming it up a little bit too much? And Eugene's like, oh, he's a ham at heart and stuff. I assume that was a reference to the live show performances in general. And like
that makes
the played-up acting.
Actually.
I would assume so.
What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. I can't remember what it is. It was something about this episode.
Okay. Well, let me know if you remember it, because we're moving on to
live. Oh, yeah. one of the jokes that it took me the longest to figure out, like, how it worked in the history of Odyssey was Bernard's "I'll do it tomorrow" joke. You explained it to me so many times as a kid, and I couldn't figure it out. And then one day I just, like, figured it out when you explained it to me, like, the 509th time. And I was like, oh, I got it. And then I listened to it, like, 6 more times, and I was like, no, I still don't get it. And nowadays, I get it.
Without a doubt, the joke that it took you the longest to understand, and I can't remember if you even still understand it to this day, is...
the Keys suspect?
No. It's Bart's "the second Tuesday of the month falls on the 15th.
Oh, yeah, discount. I still don't understand that joke. At all.
Because
I still don't get that.
If the 15th is a Tuesday, then a week earlier, the 8th was a Tuesday, right? Which means it has to be, because that's 7 days earlier.
Yes.
Which means
would that be the 3rd Tuesday?
Exactly. If the Tuesday was the 15th, it would have to be the 3rd Tuesday, not the 2nd, because it would be the Tuesday was the 1st, Tuesday was the 8th,
I feel like
Tuesday
that's
was the
too
15th. Smart
for Bart, though.
It's so smart. That's why it's so funny, because it took me forever to get that joke when I first heard it. I was like, I mean, it's a very specific coupon, but then I realized, like, oh, it's impossible, but it's like a tricky impossible, which is why it's funny.
I guess that makes sense.
I remember I actually created a calendar. I found a calendar that aligned like that and sent it to you. I remember you tried to
draw a diagram for me, and I was like, nah, I don't get it.
Live at the 25. Good episode.
It's the best live show. Okay, going through the live shows, which ones do you like or not like? You can only say you like it or you don't like it. That's all.
I would say...
So New Year's Eve Live, do you like it or do you not like it?
I would say I like the first 4.
I like it. I like the first 3.
BTV Live is, like, on the line, depending on parts of it. But if I had to pick one or the other binary-wise, I would say I like the first 4, dislike Push the Red Button.
Okay. Yeah, I like the first 3, and I dislike BTV Live and Push the Red Button. BTV Live isn't awful, though. I would say Push the Red Button is awful, and the video version is unwatchable, except for the parts with Jason, because Townsend Coleman is hilarious, and at least Jess is having a good time.
Yes.
He's laughing a lot in it. You can tell he's having a really good time.
The funny thing about BTV Live, I remember when we bought the album for it, and so we hadn't heard the episode before, but because it's its own product. Mm-hmm. We were driving back from Spokane.
Yep.
And we were listening to it in the car, so it was like us and our parents listening to it at the same time.
And then
we're like
it
playing
has a freaking scientist in it, and we were just
Julius Schissebunker. As it's going through the episode, and both of us were just like... We're like, to our parents, we're like, I'm sorry,
this is... Dad, never really listens to Odyssey, and he was just like, why do you guys like this show?
Yeah, I was like, this is...
we don't know anymore.
I was like, this is such a bad representation of the show.
And he was like, what? And we're like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. Oh.
So, Live at the 25, a significant portion of the episode is rehashing the old Young Guns Bonanza sketch from Over the Airwaves.
They took out some of the funniest lines, in my opinion.
I had forgotten about this. Connie actually acknowledges at the top of that sketch that it is a classic, or at the top of the episode, that it is a classic kids radio sketch.
Yeah.
That she actually points that out. This episode lends itself to the really crazy voices and sound effects for the Young Guns Bonanza sketch. Chris and Townsend especially really go off with it on the voices. Chris, doing the sidekick, and Townsend is the son, but he's also like one of the gang.
See, I didn't realize he was the son.
He's Headlock Harry.
I thought he was the son going into it, but then his voice sounded so different, and I was like, nah, that's not Townsend. Yeah.
The 25 years from now sketch, like you said, is like one of the best things ever.
So
great
funny.
Excuse for crazy voices and self-referential jokes.
Tom's like, I'm almost 200 years old.
Which we were just talking about in the I Slap Floor review.
So funny. And then Dead as the Menace has been
6 for going on 75 years. Yeah, the jokes.
funny.
The jokes about Connie's and Tom's ages are so great. Connie's age jokes here are better
I
than
ran into Donna Barkley at the grocery market yesterday.
the grocery market.
She is 10 years older than me.
How did she start younger than me and now she's 10 years older than me? How does that make sense? Connie's age jokes in this sketch are better than any fan spoof or joke by fans has ever attained. It's so good.
So funny.
And just like, even when Tom is being all old and stuff, and which like, well, you know, the book of the Bible says it's... I don't remember. It's just something about
I can't
old men.
remember. And it's like, this is so much more realistic to like what elderly people say when they try to remember verses compared to like what Wit actually says.
That's what anyone sounds like talking about verses.
I know.
So that's about the live show stuff for that episode. BTV Live. This is the first one that's double the length of the previous ones. It's the first one to have like a video stuff for it. I mean, it's like video and stuff separately, and it's also a standalone product. It's not just in another album.
Okay, you can't tell me that the stuff with the doctor is not painful.
Oh, it's not great.
It hurts. It hurt. Remember how surprised we were when we first started listening to it, and we're like, he's the thing still?
Yeah, Julia Schnitzelbanker has not been on since album 10, and then he was in BTV Live. And
okay, who beat Jeff's record again? Becky.
Yeah.
So like the record for characters not showing up was at this time. I think he beat everyone out or something like that.
He would have
Monty
probably
hadn't come back yet.
Hadn't been Monty, hadn't been Mitch, or Mitch was hadn't been Monty, hadn't been Jeff, hadn't been Becky.
Monty or Jeff or
There's
Becky.
someone else.
So it was Julia Schnitzelbanker. This idiot is ridiculous. And also
I think
the guy who's in
he's
Stars
basically
in Our Eyes. What's
he would have
his
been
name?
I think
Davey.
tied with Davey Holcomb, because it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to count BTV Live in terms of it came out like it was recorded I think after album 50 because they had all the same kids who were in album 50, but they released the product
They
like
didn't have Jared Devin.
it showed up
Jared.
between Truth Chronicles and Darian's Rise is like when it came out. So it's
The
kind
nice
of
thing about
there's no episode number for it,
BTV
so it's
Live
hard to
is
categorize.
that Lucy and Jack are canonically married in it.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah,
it
I was
confirms
gonna
that
get
they
to
actually did get the chance to get married after all the hubbub they went through in album 50, which
Yeah.
is good.
So this episode, it brings back the opening skits with Chris in a very cheesy, very long way. Like the Julia Schnitzelbanker stuff is long in this episode.
And it's like throughout the entire thing, it just keeps on going back to them.
Well,
and I'm like,
at the beginning and the
stop.
end. There's no in the middle.
It feels like it goes on forever.
Well, that's because there's a really long opening scene.
It's so painful.
So once again, this is meant to be a live episode in canon. I think it's worth pointing out, too, that BTV Behind the Scenes was also a live BTV episode, although it wasn't in front of a live studio audience, because they were doing the raising money for the studio, and then it was saved by the okra farmers of America.
Schnitzelbanker in, like, Odyssey canon, like, jumped Chris while she was walking through an alley in Odyssey on a late night, and he was like, put me back in an episode, it's been so long. I have no money, I need to be paid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, if he'd managed to turn those eggs into solid gold bars or whatever, you know.
He didn't, though, because he's the worst scientist ever.
It's true, I can attest. So, this episode stands out in that you were saying, like, this. It has quite a few special cameos in there. We have George Barkley, because Chuck Bolte. Chuck Bolte's actually in this one and in Push the Red Button, although he doesn't play George Barkley in Push the Red Button.
You should have.
So this episode has George Barkley, it has Jack and Lucy, it has Jimmy, it has Robin.
They all get, like, 1 or 2 lines, respectively.
Yeah. None of the
Robin's part is the funniest, though. This little deaf boy in Mongolia told me.
South America.
Yeah.
None of the other live shows have character appearances that were particularly unusual for where they fit in the timeline. And speaking of the timeline, this is the only one that represents a very specific place therein, I think. Like, all the others are pretty generic in terms of the events that happen and where they could fall. They could take place just about any time, but this one very specifically takes place shortly after two events in album 50, which is Wooten revealing himself as the creator of Power Boy on the radio, and the Cunningham Schultz Davis engagement / wedding. There's audience interaction again, where everyone cries out, like, "We want Wooten!" And they had applause cards, and then they had, like... Oh, wait, sorry. No,
Has the giant duck.
Yeah, lots of the overtop... The Power Boy sketch,
Okay, I will admit, the stuff, like the clips they showed from this episode and previews on the official Adventures Nazi podcast used to make me laugh really hard when I was younger, and made me really want to listen to this episode, because they showed, like, the... Power Boy fighting the duck, which I thought was really funny, and they showed little teasers of everyone owning Wits End.
Yeah. The Power Boy sketch, though, with the duck, lasts like all of 2 minutes. It basically... Wooten's like, you know what? You're right, I am going to teach good morals, good upstanding morals with my stories. And so he tells a story where Power Boy sees a bus of children careening off, and he goes and stops it with no effort or sacrifice or exertion whatsoever. And then Bernard's like, see, you told a good story about Power Boy selflessly saving a bunch of children he didn't even know. And I was like, yeah, that's called basic human decency. It's not like he literally, there's no exertion, no injury. He didn't sacrifice anything. It didn't cost him any time or effort whatsoever to do it. It's like, oh, this bus careening out of control. Oh, I stopped it. It's like, look at that self-sacrifice.
Devin,
that is what Jesus did for us. It's like...
Hey. Power Boy lost his duck in the drain once. Who knows what kind of
emotionally traumatic for him to
could have been surfacing in that moment when he fought that duck. It could have looked like his duck. You don't know what he went through.
Also, on a pure story level, it's like the blandest story you've ever heard in your life. It's like, there's a bad guy and he did something, and then Power Boy came along and said no, and that was the end.
I think I saw this in a Tobey Maguire movie, but like the duck was a lot hammier of an actor and floating.
Yeah.
And smaller.
So not to get too much into the critique of the episode itself, but to come to the illogical writing side of things, it strikes me as odd that this is a BTV episode.
It doesn't feel like a BTV episode anyway.
So this is supposed to be something that is being...
This is also the last episode for...
It's the last BTV episode with Bernard.
No, it's the last one with
Andre Stoika. Or sorry, with Paul Hurling.
With Paul, yeah. It's the last one with Paul voicing Wit. And he did it over the phone because he was having heart troubles, I believe, think so, at the time.
Yeah.
So he couldn't fly out to the live show.
And he just comes in over Skype or whatever.
Yeah.
So, BTV episode, in theory, this whole thing is supposed to be a fully scripted television show which is being broadcast to a bunch of people. But most of the segments on this program are centered on the actual characters and their lives and personalities. All of the humor, which
Lots of it takes place in Wooten's mind. Like...
Yeah, and even if it was like Wooten imagines and then they cut to a pre-recorded sketch that they had filmed separately, all of the humor that Bernard would have scripted, like when he was writing this episode of BTV, about the world knowing about Wooten and Power Boy and the stuff about each one of them running Wits End, all of that humor is predicated on the assumption that the viewers know Connie and Wooten and Eugene and Bernard, which makes sense. Do you think this is why for the
Bernard
audience
never showed up on another episode of BTV? They're like, that was horrible, you're fired.
Yeah, it's like, that doesn't make sense for random people watching it unless they know the people who work at Wits End. So this humor, character, stereotype-driven humor, like, especially when it's used to recode the same scene over and over with a different voice, like I said earlier in Mandy's debut, and now it does it with Eugene's end and Bernard's end and stuff. This style of comedy is good for easy, quick laughs, which is ideal for a live audience when you want to make it sound for the recording like people are really laughing a lot. It's fine in moderation in terms of general writing, but it does not make sense in a BTV episode. So I feel like in this case, they really sacrificed the integrity of logical writing for the sake of making like a good live show and fan service. It's not a really glaring flaw, like I never really thought about it until this listen through. But
I think this was
the
like the
trend
first bad BTV
the
episode.
trend amplifies 100-fold in the next episode. And on that note, I do find it interesting. It's not bad, but it's interesting how the Bernard's end bit chose to focus on Bernard's cleaning as his personality trait rather than him being
Yeah,
curmudgeonly. Maybe that's because
true.
Bernard wrote the show and that's how he views himself. Writing wise, they also have Eugene trying to prove he can be wit, which feels incredibly regressive for him with reference to let this mind be in you.
Yeah, and then it has that joke about like I actually do kind of like this joke. If anyone has ever seen the wit like costume that they have for
Yeah.
the live shows, Devin can put a picture up here. It is the stuff of nightmares, and I like how they make a joke
And Eugene
about how
roasts
it
it, which
is
is great, yeah.
horrifying in this. So
This episode also has the first. Now, Live at the 25 had self referential jokes, but they didn't break the fourth wall. This episode is the first one that breaks the fourth wall directly, where in a couple different ways, Wooten directly addresses the Foley guys about the running sound effects. He's like, come on, Foley guys, faster, and I need to get better Foley guys and stuff. And Eugene reads Wit's opening theme monologue when he's imitating Wit, and he gets all the way to saying the actual title of the show. Now, characters in the past have done the incomplete lines of that monologue, like Bart does it in Stars in Our Eyes, and he's like, you can just go on the commercial and be like, hi, it's John Avery Whittaker, but most of my friends calls me Wit. I was just heading
and
down for a time of wonder and excitement, but first I needs to stop by the Electric Palace, which is it's like a indirect wall break because it's part of the intro,
but
but
even like as not a wall break, it's still really funny.
it is
And then also
hilarious.
there's
But
that joke
Eugene
in
does fully break in here because he does actually get to the end and he says
yeah.
Adventures in Odyssey, which that is a fourth wall break.
But there's that one joke in the beginning of the road trip with Bernard and Eugene
You're right.
when
You're
he's
right.
on the
That's true.
radio and it
And they
starts
hear it.
playing the Odyssey theme. He's like, "Oh, I want to listen to that" when his car breaks down.
Yeah, when the alternator belt breaks. That's a good
I
point.
always,
Forgot
I
about
don't
that one.
know if it's just me, but every single time I hear that, I'm always like, "What episode is that?"
Yeah.
Like,
Do you think it would
I'm
become
always
this
like, I
fractal?
wonder if he actually started listening to it. What episode it would be?
It's this fractal thing where he was actually listening to firsthand experience and then it just like goes into a infinite wormhole.
I always wonder that. I'm always thinking, like, would it be the episode that he's on? Or would it be, like, a past episode? Or would it be a future episode?
It's I
And
slap
it's, like,
floor.
his car is psychic.
What was I gonna say? So, Jess does a bunch of voices. Also, fourth wall breaks. Jess just telling the story of Chris's struggle, saying "rash on my feet" when he just like turns the audience and he like just tells
But
them
it's
what
so
happened.
funny,
It's
though.
so funny. And then
For Chris.
just does a couple celebrity impressions. He does his Rodney Dangerfield and his Bill Cosby, and then they start arguing with each other. And then Will sings "Have you ever been to Odyssey?" at the end, and everyone starts like clapping and stuff.
It's such a good song.
And then we come to push the red button.
I feel like this one made all the other live shows a little bit better through its awfulness.
That's
like,
true.
I feel like if it weren't for this episode, you would not like BTV Live.
You know, you might be right.
Yeah.
So it takes
see, that's why I personally say I do not like BTV Live, regardless of my feelings on this episode.
That's a fair point. It takes the trends in BTV Live that it started doing, notably the length of it, and valuing writing for the sake of a live audience and the basest level of fan service, and it values that way over writing's sake for writing. It values that way over writing an actual logical episode. I can't talk today. I'm sorry.
And like, it does have a couple funny lines, like screaming in Latin actually got a laugh out of me. Telling
me
the
too.
audience to scream. All of Jason's lines were really funny, but it doesn't have like that, like early episodes, like especially Live at the 25, had like really, really clever writing, and this either has like really silly stuff or really dumb stuff.
Yeah, so this episode, It's the only live show that has a separate studio recording because they actually had to change the script for the album, not just to cut out 50% of the content, but just so it actually made a modicum more sense and removed all the fourth wall breaks with Jason, as hilarious as they were, especially the Mortal Coil joke. The episode, also, is predicated on the idea that Eugene has created a single master program to control all of the functions at Wit's End, which also
I've never heard that before.
This also happens,
like 10 episodes.
This also happens outside of Wooten's dream, and even outside of the dream, everyone's like, oh, that's a really risky and scary idea, despite the fact that that's literally what Mabel and Applesauce were all about decades ago. So, like, on many counts, this is clearly writing for the audience, overwriting for any semblance of continuity, and that's not good. When the merge first happens, they even make a reference to this absurd oversight, because when it starts merging and everything starts breaking down, Captain absolutely yells, "Great applesauce!" And I was like, you know what you're doing. You're pointing it out.
Plus, I've never understood the interactive kids radio program.
This isn't even supposed to be...
That's the thing that started in the Truth Chronicles.
This isn't even supposed to be interactive kids radio. It's just supposed to be regular kids radio.
Oh, that doesn't make sense at all in any way.
It makes no sense. Wooten was sitting in a recording booth by himself. I don't know who was voicing the other people. Pre-recorded lines for what. And then people start...
They make it sound like just like robots were voicing the other people. Because they say like, he says Mr. Whitaker. And they're like, who's that? And I'm like...
And it's like Wooten is somehow trapped as Captain Absolutely, as if he's physically that, even though he was just sitting in front of a microphone in a recording booth. He wasn't in any kind of VR invention at all.
I will say, though, Jess is VAing on Wooten doing Captain Absolutely, trying to go back to Wooten, but failing, actually is really, really good vocal work.
Every time going into that line, I forget whether that's supposed to be happening or whether he actually... tripped up trying to get back to doing Wooten's voice. And then like, oh, it was on purpose.
I think he did it on purpose.
It was on purpose, but it sounds like, it's like you're doing a voice and then you try and jump quickly another voice and you're like, blah, I can't, I need to,
I mean, we've seen him argue between the two of them.
It's true.
We know that he can switch back and forth on them.
Yeah. So yeah, the concept of how kids radio fits into this as if it were some kind of VR thing that was affecting their minds is beyond absurd. They don't
know what it's like?
Like the interactive kids radio thing is
it's like
interactive
the
kids radio
Odyssey
is the
TV
only...
show.
It is. The interactive kids radio thing, and I did think about this, you brought it up. It's like the only possible semblance of an explanation for what's going on.
See, that's what I always thought it was.
But they make no indication that that's what it is.
Yeah, I know.
And they really should if it was.
But since the lady Havisham, whatever, vacuum cleaner lady, she doesn't know who it is. And they make it very clear that she is not a person doing a voice and that Wooten is the only person
I guess
so.
So
Interactive Kids Radio is the only thing I can come up with for it to make sense. Because I have... This episode came out 5 years ago. I've thought about it a lot.
Here's the problem, though. What is interactive kids radio? It's so...
I don't know. They've never explained it. It's been driving me crazy ever since they first made it a thing in the Truth Chronicles.
Also, the thing is, even when we heard from it before, what we were hearing was also a dream.
Oh, that's true.
I just remembered. That was Connie's dream last time.
Make that.
Well, I know, but I'm saying the version of it that we heard, what took the idea, maybe, but the version of it we heard was Connie's dream, and the version we're hearing now is Wooten's dream. I can't believe until now I didn't put together the fact that both of those were dream sequences, which is actually a really funny connection to make, but makes a lot of sense, honestly. So yeah, the episode has to play the "it was all a dream" card to excuse most of the illogical inconsistencies, and they even call out what a ridiculous cliche it is. And I like Matthew's yeah, but I'm a kid and I'm too young to realize it's a dumb cliche yet.
And then I'm
funny.
like,
doesn't excuse it.
Fight whoever wrote that line. Because kids do know it's a dumb cliche. Kids are not stupid. Odyssey is always written in a way that shows that they do not think kids are stupid, except for when they write live shows like this, it makes it seem like they think kids are stupid because there's a lot of kids in the audience. And it's like, you have never used your writing to make it look like kids are stupid before, so why are you doing it now? How does it make a difference if kids are in front of you or they are over the airwaves? It should not make a difference at all. Write the same. Yeah. Do you agree with me?
Yes. Good, go fix it.
Go fix it. And
some things never change.
I don't like this episode. Like I said, it did get a couple laughs out of me. Like the "you sound like an expensive vacuum cleaner" did actually make me laugh.
That's funny.
I was like, oh, that's so mean, but true. And I think one of the interactions with a Foley guy actually also did make me laugh. I can't remember what it was. Like someone was like, "Oh, I don't have this thing," and then a Foley guy brought it over.
Oh, it was
them,
like the mirror, Penny
like
having the pocket mirror.
No, it wasn't that. It was just
she's
something
like, "Oh, I don't," and then he runs over,
else.
puts it in her hand. She's like, "Now I do, yes."
It might not have been that, but I know it was an interaction with a Foley guy. One of the parts that just went on way too long, and I was like, I understand that you're talented, do something else.
Oh, the tap dancing? Is that it?
The tap dancing, yeah.
Yeah, that's
and I was just like, I forgot this was a thing.
And then
Except
Penny...
for this is the thing that made me laugh. Penny was just like, yeah, and then I'll do this, and I'll do like 16 backflips with a banana on my head the entire time. And looks at the Foley guy, and he's like, and she's like, or not.
Love Dave Arnold. I don't think he was actually tap dancing there, just from looking at the movements. It looks like it was just pre-recorded tap dancing audio.
That faker.
But I don't know if he can actually tap dance or not. So yeah, this one's also the double length of a regular episode. I want to say it's 54 minutes.
It's so long.
It is 53:39 is the length.
It's so long. I started watching the video because Devin made me watch the video
even longer than
and
BTV
not
Live.
To the album version, and I
defeat the point.
Why? But it was I was like, oh, it's gonna be so painful. Yeah. How long is it? Is it like 40 minutes? And it was like 53, and I was like, no.
I know. Jess also flies through when he's like gets on the radio at the beginning. He flies through his gambit of impressions again. He does Wacko, Cosby, The Cowardly Lion, and all 4 of the Beatles.
I can remember, though, I actually did squeal really loudly, and I grabbed Devin and started shaking him the first time we heard this.
Yeah, I remember
we
that.
watched it live, and he did Wacko's voice, and I was like, that's my son!
They also brought in Chuck Bolte again, and Townsend does a ridiculously over-the-top and nonsensical character with Lord Gargantuan Foulspleen. Oh my goodness, does that character get on my nerves?
No, that's not Townsend.
Who does Foulspleen? Yeah.
Oh wait, yeah, sorry, yeah, that
Chuck
is.
Bolte does Michelangelo.
It's George who does
Michelangelo. Yeah.
Michelangelo. You know what made me really cringe? Like
when Michelangelo said that his inspiration was scripture for painting the Sistine Chapel and all these flowery things about painting it, which is absolutely historically false.
No, the funniest part is the reason he wanted to draw a lot of naked people everywhere is because they told him not to, and he was like, nah, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then he did.
He was a salty, bitter man.
He thought it was really funny, which it is. But the parts where they were like quickly going from place to place to place, and then they did like this really racist French thing in one place with the Eiffel Tower, and then like this over the top.
I did anything racist in France.
Well, it was like such an over the top accent, and they're like, "Ooh, baguettes," and I was like, "Okay."
That was not racist because there's no historical oppression of French people for being French. Now, the Indian Taj Mahal thing is a little more on the fence.
Oh yeah. And then the thing with Einstein, and they're like, we're going to make him a barber. And I was like, what are you doing? I don't remember any of this. I must have blocked it out of my memory. It's horrible.
The best summating line of this episode in Chris's wrap-up, she says, today's episode was written and directed in the broadest possible sense. I was like, that's it. Right there. That's all we need to say.
I wrote down a couple lines while I was listening to it. What was it? I'm gonna find it. Captain Absolutely at one point says, I think you've lost the plot. And I was like, when did you ever have it?
So, that's the end of looking over episode by episode, like what are the live show kind of bits that play out in each one. So, in order to summate this easily visually, and I send this to Victor, I'll throw it up on the screen right here. Y'all can see that I have made this handy dandy chart, which has a bunch of these both good and bad. These are just things that happen. A bunch of these patterns that we see across episodes on the x-axis and on the y, we have the 5 episodes in order, and then the Hand of Hope will come after that on the bottom. And the only thing we know about that...
We'll probably make a bingo sheet with this for the new episode.
The only thing we know confirmed that's on here for the new one is that there will be songs in it. So as you can see, looking at this pattern-wise, so the biggest ones that really played on having lots of stuff, BTV Live was the most. It might have had pop culture references in it, but I couldn't remember any off the top of my head. But it might be a shutout for BTV Live. They're probably in there, I just couldn't think of any. Push the Red Button and New Year's Eve Live are both tied. And then Mandy's debut and Live at the 25 only have 3 out of the 10
I think, like,
criterion.
The best episodes have the least amount of these cliches.
But New Year's Eve Live is, like, really good.
New Year's Eve Live is the exception.
Well, here's the thing. The biggest bad...
New Year's Eve Live is a really good episode. You
can see the 7th, 8th, and 9th items on this list are only had by BTV Live and Push the Red Button. The middle one, the significant one being the sake of fan service plot. It's interesting to look at how the last 2, and particularly Push the Red Button, differs from other ones. So, like, going down, like, skit format applies to all of them except for Push the Red Button. The narrative being framed by a live performance or broadcast, all of them except for Push the Red Button. Only the newest 2 are longer than usual. Only the newest 2 have fourth wall breaks. Only the newest 2 have, like, really illogical fan service writing that doesn't make sense in canon. Lots of the other stuff is spread throughout impressions and goofy voices, or throughout audience participation. So, I forgot, I was going to mark down Live at the 25 for goofy voices as well, because of the... it doesn't have celebrity impressions, but it does have all the goofy voices in Young Guns Bonanza, like that Chris does and stuff.
Yeah.
Audience participation, songs, sound effects, pop culture references are spread throughout pretty evenly, but there is, like, the point is, looking at this graph, this chart, there is a very significant shift in the way that the live shows are done with partially with BTV Live and especially with Push the Red Button, was a dramatic change in the way that they did it over the previous ones, which is why I think that Hand of Hope is so up in the air about what it's going to be like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's been building this trend, and then all of a sudden everything changed when it came to Push the Red Button. It was like some of the changes were building and some of them were sharp. And so that's why I think it's really hard to predict what Hand of Hope is going to be like.
It could be all over the place. If anyone knows me and my preferences for storytelling, they know that I really don't like episodic formats, like where everything's just kind of the same between, like, things. But if the alternative from doing a skit format is just having the mess of Push the Red Button, because we know for a fact, I think it's pretty easy to say that they're going to have at least some fan service.
Yeah.
In the new episode.
There always will be.
Yeah, I'd say fan service is also in Live at the 25 because of the self-referential humor.
Yeah, but the point of it was, like, fan service to the point that it's like things don't even make sense. Like, they valued fan service over, like, the writing didn't even make sense because they ignored logic for the sake of putting fan service in there. There was nothing illogical about the way that they did Live at the 25, except for, I guess, the whole concept of Connie thinking it had been 25 years because, I mean, and they do address her age in here, but it's like, we know canonically that Wits End was less than 4 years old when Connie started working at Wits End. Because she was already working at Wits End when she hit the 4th anniversary of Jenny dying, and Wits End opened after that. Which means if Connie thinks that Wits End has been open for 25 years, that means she thinks she's been working there for over 21 years during that episode.
I think she's lost all sense of time by now.
Yeah, well, she should listen to New Year's Eve Live then, and that would help her.
No.
So,
order your favorite to least favorite.
New Year's Eve Live, BTV Live.
Your second favorite?
Sorry, I meant Live at the 25.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
13245 is what
I
I
was
wanted
so
to say.
insulted there for a sec. I was like, I want to stop doing the podcast with you.
13245 is what I meant. New Year's Eve live at the 25, Mandy's debut, BTV live, push the red button.
I think mine would be live at the 25, New Year's Eve live, Mandy's debut, BTV live, and push the red button.
That's what I figured. So our top two are flipped. Apart from that, it's the same.
Yeah.
31245 and 13245.
Yeah.
So
I'd say I honestly kind of think that if you've listened to Mandy's debut a couple times, it gets a little boring.
I would agree because like we said, like I feel like there's a very formulaic approach to the first one, but also the second one in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very.
I know I said like it shouldn't be too over the top, but the thing with
Both of them have
New
this
Year's Eve
element
Live
of like
and Live at the 25 is they actually feel special, like, and Mandy's debut just feels so normal.
yeah.
That, like,
I understand that. I also think like in the writing, like the repetitiveness is both of the sketches are based on an idea of take this one thing and do it for the character and now do it again for each individual character. And it's a lot.
I also think it's a really, really good thing that they did not try to do like fan servicey stuff in Mandy's debut, considering the audience they were playing for, and the fact that they might have never listened to Odyssey before.
Yeah.
Because they weren't playing for Odyssey fans; they were playing for a conference.
It was the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. I mean, granted, probably a lot of Odyssey fans in that audience, I would guess, just based on the convention they were doing.
I agree with that, but if they did things solely for Odyssey fans, lots of people would not enjoy it.
You are correct. So, how do we summate our findings, Victoria? What's our conclusion? What's our big thesis here?
Odyssey live shows have changed a lot over time.
Mm-hmm.
They've
you can't paint them all with a broad stroke, which is, I think, what we've been doing a lot.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot more grand scale. The more famous Odysseys become, and the longer it's run, and they try.
I mean, this one's taking place on a Disney cruise in the Caribbean, so
yeah, they kind of try to show how talented they are, and they are very talented. But that can be a bad thing because it starts to feel like they're showing off, and then it just gets really bad.
Yeah, you can't wrap a narrative around a talent show.
Yes.
That's a good way to.
Yeah, if you can take anything from this video,
that can be our thesis statement overall. You can't properly wrap a narrative around a talent show, and that's what live shows are at their core. Because it's not just about the actors performing, it's about the actors doing impressions and goofy voices, and it's about the Foley artists doing as much as they can at once while it's live, which leads to like comically over-the-top sound effects. It leads to lots of goofy celebrity impersonations and crazy, wacky
painfully
voices.
Dragged out moments.
Yeah, because you're playing out for laughter, and like I said with Fawlty Towers, it's what is logical and makes sense of a pause when you're performing to a live audience does not at all play as the same length of a pause when you're playing to individual listeners at home watching.
I think the reason that Odyssey live shows aren't as good now as they used to be is that old Odyssey live shows actually felt like Odyssey episodes. And these don't feel like Odyssey episodes. And BTV Live, it's not really even marketed as an Odyssey episode because of how it's set apart from them. Like, it's literally kept in a different album. You have to buy that separately from everything
and they had
else.
to re-record Push the Red Button because they couldn't just make it as the way that they the way they did at the show.
For those who want to argue, like, Jess does do impersonations in episodes. Like, of course he does. He's Jess Harnell. He's amazing. Yeah. He should. And like, lots of these things, they do have songs in other episodes, or skit formats, or celebrity impersonations.
But they don't do them all at once.
Yes, it is so concentrated when they do live show formats. And just to have these, like, drawn out over, like, 50 episodes or something like that, they make it watered down. And watered down is good in this case.
Yeah, spread things out. And because, like we said, if you clump them all together, that's when it becomes a talent show.
And remember when we reviewed Walter's Flying Bus and I said that the album artwork was overly crowded? So it's like just it messes with your eyes to the point where you can't see anything anymore. That's what live shows have kind of become. They're way too
Yeah. I
overcrowded,
guess
and
that's why they started making them double
yeah.
length, because they're like, hey, we need to like make room to actually fit all the stuff we're trying to put in here, but that doesn't make it more spread out and evenly paced. That just makes you lose the thread because it's so long and meandering in the process to try to work in all the things you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would our advice be, I guess, on how to fix the live shows, Victoria?
On how to fix them, I think we should do advice on how to fix them, and also advice on going to a live show, like what to expect when you go to the
Oh,
live
I
show.
was
I'd
like,
say
what do you
if
mean
you
advice on what to do?
if
You
you
go and
go
you
to a live
laugh.
show and you've
Things.
never been to a live show before, don't have too high of expectations, because if
That's
you want
decent.
like an amazing plot or something like that, or cool character development, you aren't gonna get that.
See, that's what I would want
I'm
out
just
of a
gonna be
live
honest,
show.
you are not gonna get that.
That's what I would want out of a live show. But I
I
know.
know,
But that's the problem.
that's
We
what
have
I
to.
meant when I said live shows aren't Odyssey episodes anymore. They used to be, but now they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Because they used to have like all these cool character moments, and now they still have cool character moments, except for they're always going to be in quotation marks, because they won't really apply to anything. BTV
Exactly.
Live does not affect the plot at all. Push the red button is a dream sequence. It does not affect anything at all.
Yeah, I guess like the way you're saying like they're not Odyssey episodes anymore. That's a really good point because the early ones, it's like here's an Odyssey episode which we are performing for a live audience, which we happen to be doing for a live audience, and yeah, it's played up to it in some respects, but it's still like at its core, it is an Odyssey episode,
Yeah,
which
it could
also is
still
being
work as an
performed
Odyssey
live.
episode if the audience wasn't there.
The other,
And
but then
Mandy's debut, it actually like showcases how Mandy's writing skills are actually getting out there in Odyssey.
which later
And
actually
like,
is like her character, and she does like the writing
yeah,
and all. It's
and it
43 and all
becomes
that.
like a huge arc for her. And it's like this is actually one of the earliest moments where she lets it be known that she's a writer.
Yeah, but the newest ones are more like a spectacle, a parade. They're not written to be an Odyssey episode. They're written to be a show.
Yeah, and I understand how it would be hard to just do a normal Odyssey episode in front of people, because there are certain things that would just be way too hard, like certain sound effects, where you need like a lot of stuff pre-set up,
Yeah.
or you need to mix it in a way that can't just be done in a moment or
Yeah.
something like that.
Which is most
And it wouldn't be as
things.
cool if it was pre-recorded rather than doing it. But that's just when you tweak some things and then you keep on going.
The point is, it's hard, and there's no way that's going to satisfy everyone. And
I think
so
that the
while
new live show is going to be a lot like Legend Part 2.
Sorry?
I think the
Oh,
new
yeah.
live show is going to be a lot like Legend Part 2
I
if
meant
it has the voice actors
Legacy.
that it has.
You mean?
Yeah, Legacy
yeah,
Part
I
2.
assume so. I think, like I said, there's no way to please everyone with the live shows. So I do think that they could do them better from what they've done, especially with Push the Red Button. There's a lot of ways they could improve it, but also I understand the difficulty that goes into that, because on a not just like a writing but a logistics level, a marketing level, which is a huge part of it, considering the demographic, not of Odyssey's community in general, but the people who will be at the show, like who are the people who are paying to come and see it, who have the time in their lives or the age where they're willing to pack up and go all the way to Colorado, whether that be a 2-hour drive or you're flying to a different continent. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and so from like a marketing and business perspective, I understand a lot of it. But as a fan, I can still complain about it.
I think that like they inverted the way that they do live shows from what it used to be like.
And they should go back. It used to be
they write the plot and then they probably add like all the jokes and all the audience participation stuff, and now it's just written around all the jokes and audience participation, and then they're like, "Oh wait, it needs a plot too, I guess."
Honestly,
and then they just like throw stuff in there, and it should start off just like having a plot and like jokes and stuff, and then they're like, okay, where can we put in some audience participation stuff here? Maybe Jess could do an impersonation here, and we can have some Foley guys do some cool stuff here, but overall, it's still a cohesive whole and not a mess.
Besides, did I just lose my point? It'll just go out of my head. Besides the illogical writing, was the deepest flaw with Push the Red Button. I think that the move away from a skit variety show format was another big loss for it, because that works so well for a live show when you can tell a bunch of different stories and have little bits. It's a really easy way to squeeze in a whole bunch of different actors and different characters without it being shoehorned, because you are moving to different stories that don't have to connect to each other. It allows for lots of different settings, so you can get lots of variety and put in songs and put in crazy sound effects and have them all be separate for each other. You don't have to try and come up with a way to connect everything when it's skits, because that was the problem. I mean, they literally came up with a literal way to literally connect things and Push the Red Button with the merge program, and it made no sense. The other ones didn't need that because they were variety shows. All of these different bits that they wanted to fit in there, they didn't have to be connected to each other because it's a variety show. They're completely separate entities apart from a thematic similarity. They don't have to connect to each other, so you don't have to come up with this shoehorned logical thread to try and sew them all together into this like ugly patchwork quilt.
And there are parts in Push the Red Button where a scene is literally 3 seconds long before they cut away. Like parts where they're talking to Wooten and then they're like, oh, we lost him again. Then it cuts back to Connie and Penny for like another 5 minutes. And then it was just on Connie and Penny. And it's like, couldn't you have done something else? Like, we don't want 3-second scenes. If you're going to do a scene, actually draw it out or give it more purpose than just having a character be like, oh yeah, I'm still a thing. I still exist. I'm still Jess Hurnell and you still love me.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I do love you, Jess.
Wooten going through time, it was basically like each one of those scenes existed to deliver precisely one punchline and then it ended.
Yes. I agree with that. And then also, like, it had such a dumb resolution. They're like, oh, you're just trapped in your mind.
Just
believe
imagine.
and it will stop. And then he was like, okay. And then he's back to normal. And I'm like...
Okay, so I think we've probably talked about just about everything live show-wise. We've talked about, like, the overlying trends in the arcs and how things have moved and how they should have moved and why they've done that and what we think is going to come. And I have my lovely graphic that I made in like 5 minutes. I think that's just about everything. I think we've covered it all. So
if you go to a live show, go for meeting other Odyssey fans and the coolness of seeing
getting
people who you really
from actors
like enjoy listening to get to voice act. Don't focus on the story or anything like that, or else you'll be very disappointed. Focus on meeting the actors and other fans and how much fun that is.
Yeah.
Focus on the experience, not the experience, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and focus on the family.
Yeah. Get out.
So, yeah, that's everything. I think we did a pretty good job with that.
I think we both had several tangents. I think this was a success.
Yeah. So next time we have reviews of 2 episodes. Do you know what they are, Victoria?
Odyssey.
Which is...
So, Flash Flood is what we're going to be reviewing the Odyssey episode, which is Swept Away Part 1.
Yes, correct. Time to get wet, everyone.
Please never say that again.
Redact that.
So, I'm not just saying this because I want comments on the videos, but I think if people have any opinions on the live shows...
And we know you do.
We know you do, because it's hard not to. Just send them to us on Facebook or YouTube. I'm interested in hearing them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Tell us if you like the live shows, if you don't.
What would you do to fix them?
Yeah. Honestly, it's,
or not fix them,
an interesting proposition. If you had the chance to fix a live show, if you think it needs fixing.
Yeah.
What
are you expecting / hoping for out of November's live show? Do you think there should be more of them? Should there be less?
I think they should do them less often, honestly.
I mean, every 5 years, it's pretty spread apart, in fairness.
I guess so. Maybe if they were better, I'd be okay with it. If they were more like Live at the 25 and New Year's Eve Live, I'd definitely be okay with that. I would look forward to it, actually.
So yeah, next time we're doing Swept Away and Flash Flood for the June review. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And I have a cold.
We all have a cold.
It's sad.
And you've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.